Good evening, everyone. Uh, My name is Mark Russo. I am the facility superintendent for the town of South Kingstown. I'm also the liaison to the Sustainability Committee, which we have a couple of members here tonight. And this program started through their diligent work as far as spreading the news and hopefully saving some folks some money through this program. To my left here is Jamie Rhodes. He is from Good Energy. He is, what is your exact title there, Jamie? There you go.
I am Good Energy sales manager. I'm also their attorney here in Rhode Island.
Okay, thank you. So Jamie will give us a brief overview of the program, and then we'll just jump right into the questions. We do ask that you use the podium here because we are streaming this live and recording it for folks at home, and anyone who wants to watch it later, they're able to. So at this moment, I'll turn it over to Jamie. Thank you.
So thank you all so much for coming out. I really appreciate it, and thanks for the couple of folks I got to talk to before we got started here. I just want to do a quick introduction both of myself and of the program, some of the purposes of the program and why it's moving forward, and then just to review just some of the details of what I assume is the mail that many of you have received over the last couple of days or today. So once again, my name is Jamie Rhodes. I work for Good Energy as their sales manager as well as their attorney here in Rhode Island. Good Energy was brought on by the town to serve as their consultant to develop and administer the aggregation program. Just as a note, we were selected through a competitive bidding process started in the fall of 2019, and we were formally signed a contract with the town to provide these services in the first part of 2020. What those services looked like was, at first, we met with the town to evaluate and engage them on what is it that you want to accomplish through an aggregation program. And then we put together a draft plan that would accomplish those goals and also meet the requirements that the state has for creation and implementing an aggregation program. We brought it to the town council for their consideration. At one meeting, I did a presentation to them about this is what's in the plan and answering their questions. At a subsequent meeting, there was a public hearing where anybody was available to ask questions. I remember I sat right over there and answered questions for probably a solid half hour, 45 minutes that evening about the program, and prior to the town council making some changes to the program and then approving it. After the plan was approved by the town council, it went to the Public Utilities Commission for their review. They hosted a second public hearing on the plan, and after a series of questions and answers that included the Public Utilities Commission, the Division of Public Utilities and Carriers, as well as Rhode Island Energy, and at that time it was National Grid, but the utility. After about 1 year of review, the Public Utilities Commission voted to approve the plan and issued an order doing so. Following that approval, it was roughly about 6 months later, Good Energy, on behalf of six communities, issued a multi-municipal request for proposals to electricity suppliers to serve the program. It took us about 1 year to review those proposals with our municipal staff in each community, as well as to negotiate with the suppliers to take their proposal and turn it into an actual contract. That contract to provide electricity supply was brought back to the town council, where they voted last year to approve the contract after the town administrator signs off and the solicitor signed off on the program. Following that contract, that was NextEra Energy Services that was recommended by us based off of the response to the RFP and the negotiation work. And then at that point, they began implementing the program last fall. And it leads to the point now where we're at, where the program is going to be launching in May. So that's just a little history about how we got beginning in the fall of 2019 to this point here in 2023. So just to review the purposes of the program, the first one is to provide competition to the last resort service that Rhode Island Energy offers. Last resort service is the default electricity supply. So if you move into town, you sign up with I'll make that error all night. You sign up with Rhode Island Energy for an electricity account. They don't ask you to then, okay, so you've got an account, now choose your supplier for it. They have a default so that when you go and turn on your light switch, electricity flows through that you don't have to make a separate decision. Beginning in about, I think it was 1998, the General Assembly here said, hey, we know Rhode Island Energy, or National Grid at the time, is providing electricity supply, but they don't have to provide electricity supply. There can be competition to them in it. And in fact, Rhode Island Energy is legally prohibited from making any money off of selling you electricity. They make their entire revenue comes from the maintenance and installation of the poles, the wires, the transformer stations, the substations. Their business is in electricity and utility infrastructure. Their business is not in electricity supply. One of the things that we've seen when the doors open to electricity supply, and I was talking with this gentleman about this just a minute ago, is that the deals weren't very good for residents and for businesses. You might have a low introductory rate, and then it'll balloon 6 months later, and they'll never have to tell you about it. Or you don't necessarily know who to call in order to change it. Or somebody came and knocked on your door, you brought out an electricity bill to talk to them, they grabbed your account number and they enrolled you into the program without necessarily These are things, I'm not making this up, these are things that have happened. I would not be surprised if individuals in this room experienced that firsthand, and I understand the skepticism of moving to anything besides the utility because of those past experiences. The competitive market didn't work for individuals. That's the intention. The idea is to change that through an aggregation program. What the aggregation program does is it takes our collective demand, how much electricity we all need, and we take it out to that competitive market and ask people to bid on it. What's the rate that you're willing to give us? How low are you willing to go? You make money only if we buy electricity from you, so can you give us a better deal than what Rhode Island Energy's last resort service is? And Rhode Island Energy, just to be clear, they step aside, they go, this is not our fight, this is not our game, we have no interest, we don't care if you buy from us, we make no money on it. If you all leave our program, that's fine. We're still gonna deliver our electricity to you because we own the poles, the wires, we connect them to your house. And once again, that's where they earn their revenue. So the value of an aggregation program with that additional demand is that, one, we can compete. We have enough buying power where suppliers aren't just looking at us as individuals and being like, you use your 200 kilowatt hours, you use your 500 kilowatt hours, here's a deal, take it or leave it. If you don't like it, just walk away, go back to Rhode Island Energy, no worries. But if we're able to bring the entire buying power of a municipality together, that's when the phrase I often use is they start sharpening their pencils and say, we're talking about thousands of kilowatt hours or megawatt hours. We're talking about real demand here, in which case they have an interest in coming to us and providing a more competitive option. The benefit of doing this through the municipal government is that we got to negotiate with them and say, no opt-out fees, no change fees, no ballooning rates, notice requirements, to let everybody know all the ways that the competitive market was taking advantage of folks, we were able to remove by having the municipality step in and say, we're going to be the ones to negotiate this agreement, and we want to take those things that were hurting individual customers out of the system. And so what we have here is, and this is probably the mail that you've received, is that what we've been able to secure is a supply of electricity for the town that is lower than Rhode Island Energy's rate, that has more renewable energy in it than the supply you would be getting from Rhode Island Energy. No opt-out fees, no change fees, no leaving fees, no fees at all. You can move between products in the program at no cost. You can leave at any time. There's a number on here, there's a phone number and all of that. You can leave at any time without cost to you. Rhode Island Energy is still there, or you could select an alternative supplier if you so choose. In my view, that was what we were brought on to deliver. Lower rates, more renewables, and better consumer protection in the program. I feel very confident, and I stand by our work, that is the program that we've delivered, and nobody here is required to be in it. Everybody in this room is free to opt out and leave the program at any time. I take no personal offense to it. NextEra Energy is okay with it. Rhode Island Energy is willing and able to bring you back to their service, or if there's another supplier you want to work with, you can enroll in them in the next month as well. So all of those options, all all of those options are in place. Now, I know, once again, people received postcards and the letters in the mail recently. There's 2 actual updates to this letter that, before we get further, that I want to just let folks know. It has at the top an opt-out date of April 3rd as a deadline to take action before it. We're going to be extending that. And a little bit is because some of you folks have not received this letter, and some of them just received it, which is about 4 or 5 days later than the mail house told us that you would be receiving it. So we are going to duly extend the opt-out period past April 3rd to April 8th in order to account for the fact that mail wasn't delivered in the time that we were told. I'll let you know when I'm surprised. I get it. And I also just want to note that the rate here that is quoted for Rhode Island Energy, last resort service, at 9.761 cents per kilowatt hour. If you look at the bottom here, you'll note that that's a rate that they proposed on January 19th, 2023. They have subsequently updated what that rate is going to be, and the Public Utilities Commission will be voting to approve their rate this month. It is going to be somewhere between 10.3 cents to 10.7 cents per kilowatt hour based off of their additional filings. And this is due to them reconciling their administrative costs and reconciling their renewable energy costs. So these are things that they do annually. There's nothing nefarious behind what they did. This is their schedule of when they file these things every year. We just had a printing deadline, and so we had to get this out with the information that we had available at the time. And here I am in front of you updating it as best as I can. So that's how I just wanted to describe why we're doing this program, why we're happy to be working with the town of South Kingstown to do it. Once again, I stand by the product that we were able to deliver based off of our agreement with the town and the purposes of the program. And really excited to do is open up the floor. I'm here to answer your questions. And to me, there's all good questions. Anything that we're able to do to better understand our electricity system is something that benefits us in the long run. And I know just for questions, so you guys know, we're going to ask you to come up here because it's being streamed on YouTube for anybody at home, and that's where the microphone is to be able to hear you. So I don't know if you want line up or just one at a time or free for all, cage match. Okay, not that. Sorry, we're in a municipal building. I should not have us extend. So.
You need a name or just you want me up here?
Name only if you want me to address you by it.
No, so you answered a lot of my questions.
Okay.
Yeah, which is good. And something people don't know is, because I checked with Rhode Island Energy when I got this, and like he said, they don't care if you go. They're actually very nice about it, you know what I mean? But right now, they were 18 cents. So now, it was 9, but it's 10, so they're still, this is a good deal. You answered the questions I have. If you want to switch, there's no penalties, there's no, and they're gonna, to your knowledge, they're gonna let us know rate increases.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So this rate, as it's noted here, is in place from May to November of 2023. And as probably you folks know, Rhode Island Energy changes its rate at April and October of every year. This is just their 6-month cycle. In the beginning, we're going to be on a similar cycle, delayed 1 month. So we're May to November, and then that is, December to May. Our intention, which is what the town council asked us to do, was to get us to 1-year rates. Right now, for the beginning period, we couldn't get a 1-year rate that would deliver savings for everyone. So we said, we'll take a shorter rate, save everybody more money, and to be able to adjust when the rate is adjusted in the fall. Just like Rhode Island Energy does, we'll be sending out press releases, we'll be putting notices on the website. We are not going to mail everybody another rate card because the cost of doing that mailing gets built into the rates. And so more mail costs more money. So we are exploring some options of like postcards or other small things that we can do and pricing it out. But the idea is to get notice out to everybody minimum 45 days in advance of a rate change, so anybody can opt out at that point as well, and you have sufficient time to do so.
And the company is confident that they'll always have enough energy to supply the houses. They're not going to run out of energy.
No, they are not going to run out. NextEra Energy Services is licensed by the Division of Public Utilities and Carriers as a supplier in Rhode Island, which means that they have both the technical and financial viability to deliver the electricity that's being promised.
I can't think of a bad thing. Sounds like a great idea. As long as they stay below Rhode Island Energy, I can't see what.
And if we don't,
yeah,
leave the program.
exactly. So
Yeah.
win-win. All right, guys.
Thank you.
So I'm just curious who you've been working with at the town of South Kingstown on this?
I've been working with Mark.
Okay.
I know we've brought in Julie Mason around the procurement, and then James Manny he's been looped in everything that I've done.
Okay. I'm just concerned about the article that was in the paper on Monday about Next Era Energy. That was in Go Local. And I'm just curious if elected officials knew that, that this would be the power company that would be selected. And just wondered if you could speak to that.
Yeah, and so there's what I can speak to is both how we identified NextEra, some of what we did to evaluate them as a supplier. What I can't comment on is their internal operations because I'm not NextEra. I can't speak for them. So what I can speak to is how did we vet what they did, and just the one thing that I want to make clear is like, it is a complicated corporate structure. So, and the way that it works is like NextEra Energy has 3 primary subsidiaries, 2 of which are utilities, Florida Power and Light, one is Gulf Coast Power, and then the third one is NextEra Energy Services. These 2, the utilities, are regulated by the individual states in which they operate, by their Public Utilities Commission, and are operated just in those states. NextEra Energy Services is a supplier, and they work nationwide to provide this retail supply service that we're talking about. So I will be very clear. We vetted NextEra Energy Services as a supplier. We did not vet the utilities because those utilities aren't here, and we don't have any control over them, and we've got no say on what they do. But we did vet the electricity supplier themselves, the supply company, NextEra Energy Services. We asked them about their history of any sort of fines or legal proceedings that were against them. They did let us know that, yes, we've had some wind turbines that have killed birds. We were aware of that, and that was not a disqualifying factor for us. We also appreciated the fact that they are one of the largest investors in renewable energy across the country, and the other pieces of what they brought into the proposal demonstrated that they have the technical capability and the customer service to deliver on this program. I cannot speak to what Florida Power and Light did with his corporate contributions, his connection to Ron DeSantis. We did not look at any of that, and it did not feel like it was in our purview because it doesn't touch on whether they can deliver this program, the services of this program, and the renewable energy for this program. So I just want to be clear of what we did, and then also be clear about what we didn't do within that. To be clear, though, who the supplier was absolutely communicated to the town council before they voted on to approve the contract. So we never tried to hide who it was in any way.
Right. I understand that was during COVID, so there was, not really sure if the meetings were well attended, or it looks like at the public hearings at the Utility Commission, there was really only one person that spoke up. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering how much folks have actually know about it and know, because I'm on the town council now. Mm-hmm. I wasn't on the town council the last time. So I'm just sort of trying to bring myself up to speed on it and trying to answer some questions. One of my concerns is that the introductory rate is scheduled to expire in November. And I've been talking to folks today, and it seems like this winter, because of complex geopolitical things, the price of energy is sort of known in advance. And so right now, we know that next winter is going to be really difficult on people, or it's going to be very expensive to heat, probably even worse than this year. Mm-hmm. Now, we just switched over to a heat pump, so I'm experiencing that pain this year.
Higher cost of electricity from it, yeah.
Right, which of course is supposed to be, very fuel efficient, but I just want to clarify what the process is going to be. Because I know that you mentioned that we're going to get notices, but they're not going to be mailed, and you're going to do the best to let people know. But I don't want people to be surprised when their introductory rate goes away and they're going to.
Yeah. So we've really sought to we really sought to model our communications method for the prices to the same way that Rhode Island Energy does it. Because one, we want to make sure that everybody who pays attention to what their rate is going to be was already getting that information from Rhode Island Energy through the channels that they were communicating it. So we want to mirror so that if this is where you get information about your electricity rates, you'll get the same information from the program as how you got it through Rhode Island Energy. And as I mentioned before, like the Public Utilities Commission encouraged us to figure out a way to do more direct communication to customers around the rate changes. And so what I'm really hoping that we do is that before we get to November, we're able to come back to each of the town councils and say, this is what we were able to come up with that's cost effective and going to get to individuals and doesn't rely on email, because we don't have emails. We have to be more creative than that in order to communicate it, but then to also make sure that we land all the channels where electricity prices are currently communicated in the state.
So, as I said, I'm on the town council. I ran out of the house without socks on because I didn't know about this meeting until I saw it on Our Town too. So thank you to Roberta Mulholland who posted the notice, because the channels of communication that you're using are not working well, because I couldn't tell anybody about it today, and I would have had it on blast. So anyway, that's just
Absolutely. And I know I'm coming in front of the council in 27th. Thank you, Mark. So I'll be here to both have a deeper conversation with the council and yourself as well. And one of the things that, to be clear, is like the plan itself can be modified by the council. So one of the things I'd encourage is that if there's a particular way that you want us to be communicating to residents, let's change the plan. And so that it's not just us saying, oh, well, we want to do this, we think we can do this. Put it in the plan, and we're going to do it, and we can hold our supplier to doing it because it's there.
one of the things I would like to ask that was brought to my attention earlier was that, and I have the email in here, but there's two rates. There's like a basic rate, and then there's like an upgraded rate. Is it circled on there?
Yeah, there's a black box around the standard.
Okay, so that standard rate, as it was explained to me, it exceeds green energy standards, and it costs more. The South Kingstown basic rate meets the green energy standards and costs a little less. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the state has a renewable energy standard, so just getting the terminology. So the state has a renewable energy standard which sets the minimum renewable energy content of every electricity supply agreement. The basic here meets the minimum standard, so it's comparable in renewable energy to what last resort service is. The standard has 5% of additional voluntary renewable energy certificates to offset 5% of the usage of all the customers.
And so that's what the prior town council selected. And so does this town council have the purview to change that to the basic rate if we thought that our citizens wanted us to do that?
You could change it for future and automatic enrollments, but it wouldn't work for you to change. Like once somebody's in the program, the council can't then change what their selection is because they're in the program and they can make that selection.
But this could be changed prior to, the default setting could be changed before May?
No, not at this point. We're too far down the path with the agreement that we have with NextEra to be able to change it at this moment.
And how long is our contract with NextEra?
5 years. It's a 5-year contract.
Okay. All right, thanks.
I'm sorry. Sorry, what's that, Mark?
I'm sorry, Miss Alley. You do have the option to opt into the basic rate out of the standard rate if you choose to do so.
But each citizen has to do that individually.
Yes.
And then they're going to have to also pay attention in November or September, mid-September.
So I wish I had a calendar here. It will be towards the end of, I don't remember the exact date, in the end of August, where Rhode Island Energy will announce its prices for what their rate's going to be beginning in October. And then it will be roughly 1 month later, because we're on the month, that we'll be able to announce what the program rate will be.
We definitely want to be able to get that out to people,
Yes.
for sure.
Absolutely. It has to be clearly communicated.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Nestor, I'm a town person. I noticed that you're offering a pretty good rate for the 100% renewable, and I wonder, will that come with the same green up charge that Rhode Island Energy is charging now?
Actually, so that charge is built into the rate
Built in.
already. And to be clear, so the Green Up program through Rhode Island Energy is offered, those are voluntary recs from Green Energy Consumers Alliance.
Right.
We've actually contracted with Green Energy Consumers Alliance to provide local renewable energy certificates for our 100% renewable and 50% renewable program as well.
Great, so those charges are built into what we see.
Already built into the rate.
Okay. Do you have any sense of the approximate amount of the delivery charges, which are such a big part of our bill from Rhode Island Energy?
Does anybody have a bill with them? We can pull it, if somebody has a bill, I don't need to see your bill.
It's somewhere around 10 cents a kilowatt hour.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did not know that number off the top of my head. I appreciate that.
And one of the ladies sitting around me wanted to know, could you opt in later? Do you have to opt in by this month, or is there a fee to opt in later?
No, so if somebody opts out now and they want to join 2-3 months from now, they can come in at their convenience at any time. Thank you.
Chris Iredale, Wakefield. I came here skeptical. I'm more so now. The news the other night, Rhode Island Energy announced their rates were lowering. You tell me they're going up. Who do I believe?
The numbers that I pull from are coming from the Division of Public Utilities and Carriers. I feel that feels to me like the best source of information, since they're the regulators for it and they're the ones that have to approve it. So,
Okay, so the next issue I have is the differences between the basic and the 100% green.
the basic and the 100%, yes.
All the electricity comes through one wire. My house might be basic, my next door neighbor might be 100% green. How are they differentiating that? I think it's just a scam to get more money.
And I was just explaining this to, I understand the skepticism, and it's shared. It's shared by many folks. I will not discount that skepticism. What I can describe is how does the system work to track renewables? I will not make a value judgment on whether it's good or bad. But what happens is that whenever a megawatt of electricity is delivered on the New England grid, it gets a certificate. So there are certificates for coal power, there's certificates for oil, there's certificates for renewables. Every megawatt of power has a certificate. They're unique, and they're issued by the Public Utilities Commission. Now, because we have the renewable energy standard, and that every bit of supply has to have 23% of its electricity come from renewable sources, it means that the supplier, whether it's Rhode Island Energy, if you're on last resort service, or NextEra, if you're in the program, buys those certificates so that you are able to make the claim that the electricity that we are delivering onto the grid came from renewable sources. I can't distinguish, all electrons look alike. So whether it came from a coal plant, a nuclear plant, or a wind turbine, when it comes into your house, they all look exactly the same. So the secondary system was designed to track the sources of electricity that everybody's using in both a system mix and then these individual renewable energy certificates. So for each person, or for each customer, there's an account at ISO New England that these certificates, or not, the supplier for each customer has an account at ISO New England that they put these certificates into that account to demonstrate we are meeting these obligations to provide renewable energy, and then those certificates are retired so they can't be resold or used a second time. So for somebody in the basic here, there are 23% of your megawatt hours used over the course of the year can be tracked back to specific certificates of renewable energy that was delivered onto the regional grid to account for your usage. For somebody that is 100% renewable, we'll be able to track 100% of their certificates. And to hold ourselves accountable to that tracking, we are quarterly going to be issuing what is called a energy source disclosure label. Right now, we're going to post it on the town website, on the program website, and what it does, it's going to track, this is what we promised. You know, you're in a 100% product, we promise you 100% renewables. here's what you used. You know, here's the number of certificates that came from a hydropower, from landfill gas, and you just go down the line, and we could be able to identify what your energy source was. And it's specific to, like, everybody who's in the 100% is going to have one label. Everyone's in the 50 will have a different label. Everyone's in the basic will have a different label, because it's based on your individual products. And so that was a way to hold us accountable to if we make these promises, we have to demonstrate to the best of our ability that we met those promises. And those labels are, once again, produced quarterly, and they come out about, I don't know if it's 9 months to 1 year after a quarter ends, because that's how long the ISO New England system takes. I apologize. I don't know if that's the detail that you wanted. I just started talking, and I didn't stop.
I'm confused at the green electricity. Are you buying a certain amount from somebody? Like, for instance, say in South Kingstown, say 1,000 people go basic, and 5,000 people go 100% green. You have to calculate that and then buy that much, or are you always buying the same amount?
No, we are, and that's why it takes about a year to reconcile this, is that once we know how much somebody's used, then we make sure we buy the right amount. We buy as much as we can prior to, and then you measure what you bought in advance to what was actually used, and then you have about a year to buy the additional ones that are necessary at that, or if you bought too many, hold them until the next rate period. And that's why you have about 9 months to a year to provide that documentation to the regional grid, ISO New England.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Oh, and just so everybody knows, as you could tell, I like to talk about this stuff. So if you get me going, I'm just going to talk. Interrupt me. If you go, wait, I don't know what you just said there. I'm okay. Please do.
I understand that. I'm a manufacturer for 47 years. I did cogeneration for a while.
Yep.
So one of the things I'm unclear is everyone in the program?
Is everyone in the
Everyone in South County in the program? And if,
No.
how do we go find that out?
So you are in the program if you are currently on Rhode Island Energy's last resort service. You are considered an eligible customer for the program.
So I got a card, and my girlfriend didn't get a card, and she lives down the street. How do we know we're in or out?
So the fact that she got the card, or you got the
I
card,
got the card.
that means
I'm in.
you can be in.
Oh, I'm in. That's cool.
If she didn't get the card, it means that she has either,
Threw it away in the garbage.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, but I
Okay.
know. I'm with her. I realize that.
It would mean that if she didn't get a card and doesn't get the letter, it means that she has either selected another supplier at some point in time.
Nope, she never did any of that. How
She's-
do we go look at it? How
Oh.
do we go see if we are or not?
Oh, if you have your bill, and on your bill it says, this is not a bill, but I'm
Yeah.
making it. It has a piece that says supply services. If it says Rhode Island Energy,
Yep,
that means you're eligible.
you're in.
You're eligible.
You're in, because everyone got, if it did Rhode Island Energy, you're in.
Yeah. But once again, it's Rhode Island Energy Supply, not Rhode Island, like everybody, even those in
Yeah,
the program,
so, yeah.
get a bill from
She
Rhode
never
Island.
elected at anything, but like all of us here, I think, we just got our bill and we said, hey, this is cool.
This is good.
This is good. So the other thing is, what could go wrong?
Oh, what could go wrong? Oh, do you guys want a reign of horrors? No.
Well, not a rain, but
I mean-
other municipals, all of a sudden, they had a national catastrophe, and all of a sudden their rates tripled. How do we prevent that if I don't have someone like the state preventing that from happening?
Yes. So I would say I'm going to take the first question,
Yeah.
and then the natural
Okay,
disaster
I like that one.
question second. So the things that could go wrong, and once again, I work for the town. Like I'm
No,
a
no,
consultant to the town.
Yep.
What could go wrong would be the next era that we chose. They could always go bankrupt.
Absolutely right.
So what we've done is we put into the agreement specific mechanisms that if they go bankrupt, here's the process that we get to wind down the program and move everybody to
Very good.
service.
Good.
So that's one, just in case. I mean,
Just in case. Yeah, national disaster. Yeah.
don't know. They are a huge company.
Yep.
Bankruptcy seems unlikely,
Right.
but you have to be there just in case. If there is, and this is an issue question I got last week, is like, there's also a chance, like, not to rule it out, if they don't buy enough electricity to deliver onto the grid for some reason. Well, there's two pieces that happen there, and this is a thing that this is just general information about electricity system. How electrons are delivered to your house and how we are billed for it are two separate very separate systems. They talk to each other because we're using the same measurements, but how you pay for it does not actually determine whether the electricity gets to your home or not. So if NextEra, for some reason, does not procure enough electricity, the system will still keep the power on at your home because the system is designed to deliver the electrons when it needs it. But what's going to happen is that they are then in violation of their contract with us and their license with the DPUC. And so, one, they got to make it right. And if they don't make it right, and that would be pay the penalties that are associated with it, then we're able to terminate our agreement with them if they don't deliver enough.
Yeah. We still have to gonna pay for, I was in California for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of a sudden, we don't have enough power, because I have an electric car too. And I don't have enough power for it, and they say, well, if you want more power, we're gonna have to reach out and pay more for it, and you're gonna have to pay that because you want that electricity.
So
How'd that work?
I'm going to break that into two questions as well, because
Wow.
it's what I always do.
Good, that's what you do.
So the piece about the cost.
Yes.
This is the rate that you will be charged. It will not go up, it will not go down for the duration of this period.
That period.
So even if it costs NextEra $17 to deliver you a kilowatt hour, they're going to charge you 9.36 cents. The difference is on them to make up. And that's the benefit of this. Now, what was the other question? Oh, the other piece is like, if there's not enough electricity at all, it is not NextEra, it's not South Kingstown making the call about blackouts.
That's correct.
That's either Rhode Island Energy or ISO New England. And that's the situation. If there's a natural disaster and we lose generation facilities
Oh, yeah.
across the region, these entities are designed to be able to shut off power to protect the system and to bring it back on as it happens. And that has nothing to do with our supply.
Let's say in August,
Yeah.
they didn't buy enough. You know, it's not our fault, they didn't know. Everyone here bought an electric car. What happens, do they say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna have to charge you more to get more electricity, because I have to go bid it out.
No. So for this period, and so what they, not to go too much, just
No.
the cursory of like what the way they do is like, they've modeled how much electricity we need
Yep.
based off of our historic usage in the town. So there's a graph literally of how it works. And what they've done is they've modeled that graph and say, okay, we're going to buy electricity to meet those demands. If we didn't buy enough, they'll buy a little bit more. And then, or if they bought too much, they'll hold on to it and sell it back, type of thing. What they charge us is this. What their cost might be is going to fluctuate. So what happens is that if they significantly underbuy, actually no, this still works. It's like if they significantly underbuy, what they're going to do is in the future they're going to buy more on the futures market where they get a better rate. Rather than trying to buy in the spot market the day of where they have.
They're not gonna like, say, you know what, I'm gonna prorate it. We didn't know, we're just gonna dump you up with like 3, 4, 5 cents.
Yeah.
and you feel
so
better.
There won't be any change. Like, once again, the rate here is good.
Right.
If they go, that wasn't enough for us to do this, then the subsequent rate period, they could change the rates so they have enough capital, and then it's a choice of.
Is there a rate change cap? I can't go from 7 to 28.
Well, no, I mean, Rhode Island Energy just went from 7 to 17
Right.
like 6
So
months
there's
ago.
there's no governing force, even with Rhode Island Energy, that prevents us from just doubling our.
They have to make the case to the Public Utilities Commission that is reasonable. Actually, not that is reasonable, is that this was the price to Rhode Island Energy to buy it. If they can demonstrate that was the price, they get to charge the
So
rate.
we still are controlled by the public utility to not have things that just take out.
They make it so Rhode Island Energy has to justify its rates, but they don't, like, just to be clear, they're not vetting this rate. This is a market rate. If you don't like it, you leave.
Right.
For Rhode Island Energy, because it has to exist as the last resort, that rate is regulated to say, you have to demonstrate this is the exact cost, and it's also because they're not allowed to make any money, or they're not allowed to lose money
That's right, because
on
it's
it.
public utility.
Yeah.
So are we governed by that somewhat?
We are governed to them as like our program has to meet their standards, but the rates don't have, like, we don't have to justify the rate to the Public Utilities Commission. I have to justify it to you.
To me, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Hi.
Bob Hicks, South Kingstown. Can you just talk for a second about the process for people who are not last ditch or whatever.
Last ditch. I'll rename it Last Ditch Electricity if you'd like.
You know what I mean, though. Last resort, last resort.
So if you are not on last resort service, you have at any time the ability to opt into the program. So if you're on a competitive, Ambit Energy, somebody mentioned, if you're with one of those suppliers, at any moment you can either, we have a call center that we've set up. You can call that number. You can call Rhode Island Energy. You can go to the town website or the program website to change your enrollment. But you can opt in at any time with no cost. The caution being is that if you have signed up with Ambit Energy or something like that, beware that if they have a cancellation fee in their contract, that's not ours. And I encourage you to wait out your contract with them unless they've given you a really terrible deal, so you don't incur any sort of cancellation fees or contract termination fees with your other supplier. While this program has none of those fees, I can't say the same for other supply offers that are out there. So anytime. Oh, just so you know, once again, I try to be abundantly clear, when you make that sign up, that switch, it becomes effective the next time your meter's read. So if you do it at the middle of May, it'll be in effect in June when your meter's read again by Rhode Island Energy.
Hi. I came late, so some of the questions I might ask you, you've already answered. The first is, I know you're Jamie Rhodes, but who do you represent?
I represent Good Energy. Good Energy is the consultant that was hired by the town to develop and implement the aggregation program.
Okay.
And I'm their sacrificial lamb that they make go out and talk to the public.
Well, so far, so good.
I try, yeah.
So I was one of those who opted in. I didn't get the postcard or the letter or the whatever, but I read that there was the opportunity to be able to actually buy 100% renewable energy electricity, and I was interested in that. I then afterwards, within minutes, was like, oh no, what did I just do? When I read the Go Local article, and the idea that, I've now, signed on to a program for, I don't know for how long, that's some of my questions, but that has a very bad track record. One of the affiliates has a bad track record for actually, not allowing renewables, pushing renewables out and other, fines, and then, supporting DeSantis and his likes. So my first question is, I know that South Kingstown is one of 4 communities that are in this community, 7 electricity program. So, and you mentioned about the vetting. Was that South Kingstown that vetted Next Era, or was it the community electricity program at some other level that did this vetting? Yeah,
so there is no extra level. There's no cooperative amongst the communities. What we've done is, since each one of the communities opted to work with Good Energy, what we were able to do is when we solicited proposals from electricity suppliers, we were able to ask them to bid on all 7 communities together. So that's why, sorry, I started speaking too quickly. What that allowed us to do is have individual contracts between NextEra and each community. So every community gets to operate independently of the others. You're not beholden to what Providence decides to do or what Barrington decides to do. They get to make your own choices. We just have a supplier in common, which helped us negotiate better rates.
Okay.
That was one question.
Yep.
What was the other?
And then that's a 5-year agreement that you've entered into with NextEra.
Yes, that's correct.
And you explained the vetting that you did. And obviously, I put gas in my car and I, put fuel oil in my tank and,
Share an analogy?
Yeah, sure.
I'll share an analogy. It's helped some people. Other people might think maybe this is too much, but it actually came from the sustainability director in Providence when we first got the Go Local news. He's like, his analogy was, Disney owns Marvel Films and Lucasfilms. If I don't like Ant-Man and the Wasp, their Quantum Mania, I don't say, it's that darn George Lucas that did it. Mark Hamill is ruining every Marvel movie ever. Yes, they're owned by the same parent company, Disney, but they are distinct and separate operations. And so we vetted the company that was going to provide this service because there's a certain level that goes, why would I hold them to account for something that somebody else did over there that they have no control over or influence on. Do I support what Florida Power and Light did? We can have that conversation somewhere else. But we still feel confident that NextEra Energy is the right supplier to provide this program, including the renewable side of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the other more kind of nitty-gritty questions I have, so how frequently can you opt in and out? Like,
You could do it every single month. You go out this month and then come back in the next month, out that month, and come back in the next month. At some point, people are going to be like, what's up? Like, what do you do? Like, what's going on here? And that's just because there's an administrative function that has to happen in order to move you from one to the other. And I just want to note, there is something in here that says you could be offered a different price. If you're in the program, you opt out, then you wait, and then you come back in. It says you might be offered a different rate. Let me explain. There's a reason for that. The big reason is, like, if you and I, as residential users, we're not going to be offered a different rate, because if we were, they would have to create a new rate and administer that new rate with Rhode Island Energy. It costs more to do that. Now, if you were an industrial customer that used, say, 100,000 times as much electricity as you do, and they spent 6 months buying electricity with your participation in the program, understanding that you were going to participate in the program. So they buy that electricity in advance for it. And you are in the program, so we know that you're there. And then you leave the program, we're like, all right, cool, we're going to stop buying electricity for you. But then that 100,000, that means that we just spent a bunch of time not buying for you. And then you want to come back into the program. We're like, whoa. This is not just like one person. I'm talking like a take-home manufacturing type of thing. Like, well, we didn't spend 6 months buying electricity to supply your need, and your need is not marginal. It's not one or two people. That means that we now have to go out and buy all this. If we would have known about it, we would have done it the whole time. And so if that's the case, because you have such a high usage, and we were buying 6 months ago, 18 months ago at a lower rate, we're going to have to charge you that difference now, because there's no way for us to do it. So the intention there is to make sure that there's not large load shifts that aren't accounted for. Individual residents, individual small commercial activities are not large load shifts. And so this has been a standard provision in our programs in Massachusetts. We have never seen it happen on the residential side. It is possible. It has been a reason that industrial customers have left and not come back in, because we were not able to honor the initial price without a better word, tanking the program.
yeah. So a similar question is, if you want to change what level you're at, is that also that you could change that on a monthly basis?
You could change that every month.
Okay.
With no cost, there's no price change, because you're not leaving the program or coming back in. It just changes the amount of RECs that we purchase. And while some RECs are purchased in advance, as I mentioned before, we reconcile afterwards. So if you jumped up to the 100, we didn't plan for it, we have about a year to reconcile those additional RECs. So it's not like buying at a very terrible market. You can wait a little bit and say, oh, REC prices came down. Let's buy up the RECs to match that, because we had enough time to do so. Once again, I wouldn't weigh into the weeds, and I wasn't sure if that's where you wanted to go.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
You probably lost someone in the weeds, but I came out on the other side. So then another question is, so when we sign on to NextEra, do we get a bill from NextEra, or we still keep getting a bill from Rhode Island Energy?
We are using Rhode Island Energy's billing.
And so do you have any way of communicating on the Rhode Island Energy bill as a provider?
You mean like put a message into the
Yeah.
bill? So there's a freeway, and then there's a not freeway. Sorry, that sounded weird coming out of my mouth. Okay, so what we can do is, like, we can change, on the supply services, we can change what it says on that little box within a character limit. That's what we can do for free. If we want to put an insert into the bill, we have to pay them and their printers to put an insert into a bill.
Well, I just think that the more transparent that you can be with, certainly with the rate changes,
Yeah.
you know, as has been communicated by Patty, our councilwoman, you know, giving advance notice as soon as you know it to your customers. So if you have the ability in your little box to say, hey, NextEra rates are, we've now, have our rates for the next 6-month period, provide a link or whatever it is. But there's a way, people get their bills and it's, the burden's on them to read their bills, but if you communicate, that's one way you can communicate. So, because everyone's going to get that bill. Everyone who's buying from you is going to get that. So I would just suggest that would be, one thing you could do, that you get the information out.
Can I ask you, just,
Yeah.
I know it's just supposed to go the other way, but, so when you get a bill, do you, like, I don't know if you have a digital bill or a paper bill, do you look at the additional inserts that are there? Because there's usually like 3 or 4 extra pages. I'm trying to just like non-scientific cursory poll that if we put something there, would people see it?
Generally not. I will glance over it, I see what the headline is, and then usually it goes, unless there's something that catches my,
It's like red, what if
My eye.
it's bright red and I put neon?
well, like new rates.
New
Like
rate,
it-
oh, okay, so, okay.
New rates, that, yes, that would catch my attention and it wouldn't go in the recycling bin. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Yes, all the rate changes will be communicated through the website. So, so that is the default way, is both putting it on the website and then putting notices in here, the Independent and the Narragansett Times, as well as a whole lot of other papers in the state because of the multi-municipal nature of it. Let me just write this. Okay. Hi.
Oh, hello.
How are you?
I have an operational question for you.
Sure.
So right now I have solar, and solar goes into a battery, and I sell my excess to the grid, which right now is Rhode Island Energy. So my question is, what happens next?
Nothing. So, I don't know if you're in the net metering program or the renewable energy growth program. When you get bill
I get
credits,
a rebate, yes.
you get the actual money. So what changes for you is the rate that you get paid for the electricity you generate is the same.
Okay.
Now, the rate that you pay for electricity, if you stay in the program, you can have the lower rate.
Yeah.
And so you will still get the paid at the rate that you already agreed, and you could have the lower aggregation rate for.
Yes, so I do have a combination of solar, battery, and the grid coming in.
So you don't even need this. We should just be taking lessons from you of like, how can we get more independent, which I keep trying to do, but it costs some money. I appreciate your investment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I have, I guess, a few questions.
Of course.
You have a 5-year contract with NextEra, but you're issuing out 6 months worth of rate. So can you explain to me how that works across the 5 years? You take whatever it costs them each time, or how does that work?
So there's some details I can't talk about because they are confidential business secrets of NextEra, and if I did that, I would have some. It would not go well for me. Let's just
Do you know
say that.
them?
What's that?
Do you know them?
Do I know? I don't know who's coming for me, but I know the people who contract we signed, and I don't want to get on the wrong side of their legal team. So the way that it works is that the structure of this program is similar to how Rhode Island Energy buys their electricity. And once again, I apologize. I'm going to dive into the weeds a little bit here because I don't know if I can answer the question without going there. But the way I'll use Rhode Island Energy as the example and how they procure for last resort service. So roughly over an 18 to 24 month period in advance of their rate going into effect, they buy portions of the demand, 15% for 6 months, 10% for 18 months, 20% for 6 months. And these ladders, these structures that they use to procure that electricity allow them to not be subject to individual spikes in the market, and we buy all the electricity when it's most expensive. That also means that if the market goes down, we also don't buy all of our electricity when it's the cheapest either. It works both ways for Rhode Island Energy. They put this plan forward. Here's when we're going to buy electricity. These are the dates. Here's how much of the load we're going to buy. They submit that plan to the Public Utilities Commission and say, here's when we're going to buy. Are you okay with it? And they aren't allowed to do it until the PUC says you may buy electricity on those days to supply last resort service. So that's the model. So from our perspective, we know that's how this Rhode Island Energy price is developed. Well, if we're going to compete with them, we're going to need something similar. Sorry, I thought that was, I was ready to go. Okay. Yeah, Rhode Island Energy came in and they don't like what I'm talking about. So what we've worked out with NextEra is, I would call it an analogous system, where we are also procuring well in advance so that we're able to work with, like we're able to look at the market, but we don't have to go to the PUC and have them approve the exact days. We can say, is it high? Don't buy. It's low? Lock it in now. So we have that flexibility that Rhode Island Energy doesn't have, which is part of the reason why we can get more competitive rates. We don't have to tell anybody when we're buying. And as anybody who's been in the procurement business knows, if you tell everybody that you're going to buy a certain amount on a certain day, prices seem to be higher when everybody knows that you're buying then. Nobody knows when we're buying, except if you dive into the confidential parts of the contract that I'm not going to talk about. I don't want anybody to know when we're buying or how much exactly we're buying on each days. But that's what allows us to be able to build rates in a similar fashion to how Rhode Island Energy does.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is, how does it work? How does NextEra come to you and say, we're going to charge South Kingstown X amount of cents per kilowatt hour? Because, you know, you've structured this so that you're 1 month behind National Grid or Rhode Island Energy all the time, so you know what their price is. And I'm sure you're very happy that you're a little bit lower than them right now, because you've scooped up all the electric customers in South Kingstown without their permission, so your rate better be lower, you know?
Well, yeah, look, my cornerstone here is like, I want to be very clear, and I was trying to be very clear with every council that approved this. If you vote for this program, you will be changing people's electricity supplier without their consent and without their knowledge. So we said that. But there is a piece in there that says, we're only going to launch this if it's lower. So that if somebody doesn't know that their electricity supply is being changed because the letters didn't reach them, once again, letters that are returned undeliverable, those people are not enrolled because we know they didn't receive any knowledge about it, is that the worst thing that's going to happen is everybody saves some money. If somebody gets no knowledge about this, that's what's going to occur.
But what happens in November? Or next May?
You saw the things that you brought up of like, we're staggered by a month. We've altered the bidding process, the procurement process of actual electricity. All of those things are designed to build our advantages against them, so that I can stand here before you and say that while I can't guarantee you're going to be lower than Rhode Island Energy in 6 months, because I don't know what that number is. If I'm going to guarantee against an unknown, somebody should walk me out of here and tell me to stop talking quickly. But what I do know is like the system that's been put in place builds on market advantages. And that's why when we looked at the proposals from the different suppliers that wanted to supply this program, the one that identified what those advantages were, articulated them to us, and was able to play out scenarios of how they were going to be able to keep prices lower than Rhode Island Energy over time. That's a supplier that we recommended to the town council to choose. The supplier that wanted to set a rate now and hope for luck that it'll be lower or higher later, we said no. That's what I got.
I mean, in the past, I've bought from competitive energy suppliers, and they've been, you know, in some cases considerably less than National Grid was.
Yeah.
Okay, but they've never gone for 6 months. They've always gone for a year or 2 years or 18 months or something like that. And for you mirroring National Grid, it seems like if NextEra came in at 15 cents and National Grid was 19, you wouldn't be giving us 15, you'd be giving us 18 and a half. Is that right?
Why would we do that?
To make more money.
Here's the piece, is like, nobody actually makes more money that way.
NextEra does.
NextEra doesn't. This was the question that you asked at the beginning. How did we vet this rate? I knew there was a piece that I hadn't answered. So one of the things that we were able, so if we worked with a supplier that just set a number for a 3-year period of time, which is what a lot of the programs in Massachusetts do, then we have no idea what goes into that number. That company gave us a number, and there's no vetting. I don't know how you built it up. But what we were able to do with NextEra in developing this program, when they identified these advantages, was say, we will transparently build up our price with you, which also will allow us to say, this is our profit margin that we're building into the price. We are clearly going to disclose it to the town, I can't say it to the public, I'm not allowed to, but they were able to identify, this is what their profit is, and here's all the pieces that build into the rate, so that we know that they make their money off of the known piece of it. They're not going to make any additional money that if it costs them 16 cents and National Grid or Rhode Island Energy's 19 cents, they won't make any money if we charged 18 and a half, because the contract specifically says that's not profit for you. We gave you your profit. You know what it is. If we charged everybody more, that money is going to, I won't know what we would do with it. Like, it's going to sit in a bank account somewhere for no purpose. Maybe we would use it to lower a future rate that got really, we asked everybody to pay now, and we've kept the rate lower in the, I don't know, maybe we could do something like that, but NextEra has, because we were able to negotiate, and this is the beauty of negotiation, we were able to negotiate transparent price buildup so that we were able to identify, this is your supply charge, this is your administrative charge, this is your profit, this is your renewable energy, and we could look at each line with them and ask questions.
The other question I had was, you said that the other 7 or 6 towns
Yeah.
have, they're on the same, with the same company on the same contract, but they have different situations. Are we all paying the same rate in different towns, or?
No, yeah, the rate is the same across all the communities.
So people in Providence and Portsmouth or wherever are paying the exact same rate we're paying?
Their letter looks just like this with a different phone number, a different website, but yes, a different name on the top.
And then are commercial customers going on this deal too? I mean,
This option is available, so everybody here probably received the residential one. Commercial and industrial customers got a letter with a different rate on it, because the commercial and industrial rates are different. And so we sent out special commercial and industrial rate letters to commercial and industrial customers. That was a mouthful.
You keep saying option, but we really don't have an option. In other words, they're going over.
Oh, I just meant options within it.
Okay.
You have options within it,
But they're going over,
Yeah.
like everybody else is, unless they opt out.
unless they opt out if they're on last resort service.
And then my final question was, you mentioned it earlier, I
Yeah.
just want to be clear on it, is you keep saying that there's no cost to opt out. If we come back in at a higher cost, then there is a cost to opting out. So I
You mean
guess,
because the rate has changed?
well, no, you said that, the company reserves the right to charge market conditions if we come back in, and you kind of explained that they're not going to do that, but that doesn't mean they're not going to do that.
Yeah, in the sense that we're taking them at their word, and what is the worth of their word when they say this is what it is. Now, I understand the system barriers to them charging a market rate, because it's not easy, because they would have to pay for Rhode Island Energy to program in a new rate in their billing system. And talk about institutional barriers. Asking the utility to do anything for you is a beautiful institutional barrier. But yes, in that situation, if you're a large load and it looks like that they just did not procure the electricity for you, yes. That being said, you don't have to come in. Like, that's not a fee that you're forced to pay. If you don't like the rate, you can walk away.
I just want to make sure that we can go back and forth depending on if the rates are lower at one
Yes.
versus the other.
Absolutely. If you're in the program, you see the Rhode Island Energy rate is lower than the program rate, and you opt out, and you wait the 6 months until the rates change, and you come back in, then you will be able to avail yourself of that new rate. And that's if you are waiting between rate periods. When you come back in, you'll get the new aggregation rate. There's no rate change. This would be like if you switch 3 times in a 6-month period, and you also represent a significant load usage. That's when the rates could be changed, because that's the only time where they've got a financial albatross they have to get off of their neck.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have yeah.
I may already know the answer to this question, but doesn't hurt to ask. Really a 2-part question. First part is that, okay, it's a cold winter night out. We're at home, heat's on, lights on, all is good. Everything flickers, and the power goes. We have cleverly charged our cell phones. We have flashlight. We look at the number on the bill and say, okay, here's who we call. If the same thing happens and you're in charge now, who do we call?
We're not in charge of that.
Okay.
Because that's if the lights flicker and they go out, that's because the Rhode Island Energy is no longer delivering electricity for you. Got to call them. They're the ones that would repair poles and wires, and they're same within the program.
Okay, so that's not going to change.
No change there.
Now, this is a more difficult question, I think, but
Yeah.
since if we're no longer customers of Rhode Island in terms of supply,
Well, you are still a customer of them, though. Because you'll still be getting your bills through, very clear, is like, when you participate in the aggregation program, you're still a utility customer of Rhode Island Energy. You can pay, you pay your bill through Rhode Island Energy. They manage the connections, the wires, the poles, outages. What they're doing is just saying somebody else is supplying the electricity.
So there's
Sorry, I
no-
didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, so there's no loss of motivation from them, because
Right, because they make their money on making sure that your lights stay on, that the connections are there.
that's reassuring. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sure, we could get a rush right at the, no.
I'm Ed Dutman, I live in Kingston.
Hi.
I currently am getting electricity from a different supplier.
Yes.
You said that I can opt into this at any time. Earlier in your presentation, near the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned a deadline. It was going to be, well, it was earlier in April, but it's going to be extended.
Yep.
What does that apply to?
That applies to somebody that would be enrolled in the program, but wants to opt out before they ever get enrolled. So this would be somebody that's like, I don't ever want to be part of this program, though I'm eligible to be. If you sign the opt-out then before April 8th, then they will never be enrolled in the program. They'll never touch it. Okay. But for like yourself, it's available for you to opt into for the duration of the program.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I think it's you, yeah.
I ran down here from listening, and there's no way to do questions, so I had my socks on. I have two categories of questions. One I'm going to actually address first, and that's communications. You keep saying traditional methods. We've only had one utility, and therefore Projo has been our method, and even that's $800 a year. And of course, the local papers are a little more affordable to those of us who have the local papers. So I want to encourage you and the council to consider other methodologies that will in fact fill all gaps, because as much as many of us still feel that paper's tacit, we once had our taxes shredded that didn't arrive and we still owed them. And today's paperwork is a good example of what can go wrong also, even though it's meticulous. It feels like being too picayune, but we have generational differences, we have socioeconomic differences, we have techno-stratifications amongst us, just in this room, let alone citywide. So I would encourage maybe even the freebies, the town site, Facebook. Rhode Island Electric has all of our information. They may not want to pay for the paper, but at least those of us who are using and availing ourselves of paperless could be reached through email very readily, even though they may not necessarily want to partner. And that segues into my other one, so you can keep a two-part note there. Yeah. We're addressing, as far as I've been able to discern before coming down here, and I think I was supposed to get an alert if it happened on my way, you're addressing the fees and costs, and the questions come out about vacillating. But can you, if I go back and forth, if I want a game, hey, come to me, hey, come to me. So the likelihood of the enticements is very different than the returns. And yes, the PUC is in charge of Rhode Island Energy, but are we going to be welcomed back at no cost? Can you answer that?
Okay, do you want me to start there or start with the first?
Your call.
Oh, my call, okay. You will be welcomed back into the program, and I'll give you the cynical reason. We want you in the program.
Well, what about Rhode Island?
Rhode Island Energy? What do you mean?
You're speaking for NextEra. What about Rhode Island Energy?
Oh.
What if I come to you and I want to go back?
Oh, yeah, they're fine. Like, one, they have to be fine with it. They are not allowed to turn anyone away or charge anybody fees to be on or off last resort service.
No matter how many times?
No matter how many times. It is mandated to exist for you as a last resort in case everything else goes away. And once again, it is mandated that way in order to provide that backstop, that if the competitive market doesn't work for somebody, there's always a supply of electricity available to anybody at any time, no matter whether you can qualify for a program, afford afford somebody else. So whatever that is there, last resort service is just that. It is your last resort, and that's what it's there for, and it's what it's always will be there for unless the General Assembly takes it away. But that's a different issue.
And one other suggestion, if we could be added on that enrolling in texting or what have you, there's the emergency, there's the phone, there's all the different things we can enroll in. At least then maybe we'd get a text or a call.
Thank you
Because
for that.
instead of having to hunt for stuff, like to the point made before me and happened with so many of us that, oh, there's a meeting and, oh, I'd rather have dinner and, oh, maybe I do have a question.
I will honestly say I had not thought about the auto texting methods. That's interesting. One thing I just want to bring, like from the communication methods, and like if you have other ideas, like once again, I like to gather as many ideas as possible. The only thing that we were prevented from was the email. We proposed to the PUC and Rhode Island Energy for them to share the emails that the utility has with us so we can communicate that way. They said no. We were denied the ability to communicate by email.
We could ask you to do so we could enlist.
We could, as on the sheet, well, it's an opt-out sheet, but yes, there are ways that we could gather emails and communicate that way, and that's something that we can put into like an opt-in communications form. I don't want to use the same terminology, but yes, we could gather emails, and so we can communicate that way with those that want to.
Be careful, as Abel can attest, if you encourage me to bring suggestions, I will, and I might wear out my time on that. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I really like the idea of various means of communication. I think it's something even, certainly that we need to do. But one of the things that concerns me is that it says on the flyer that you might be offered a different rate. And you said to us that that's not going to happen to us as residential customers, that this is really something that's geared towards larger customers, and you're saying we're going to just take them at their word that they're not going to do this to us. But this is a company that, according to the paper, has got, $30 million in regulatory fines. So I don't feel comfortable just taking them at their word. I would like that verbiage to include on the notices that this is not intended for residential customers, because you can say this to us here in this forum, but it's not going to mean anything. It needs to be in writing, because our contract with you is strictly contained in those four corners of that contract. It's not based on,
Once again, I completely agree, and that's why I just want to say is like, while we have their word on it, that's only as far as you can trust it, and I absolutely understand why folks would not entirely trust the word of an energy supplier. The only other thing I can speak to is experience with it, and that is that none of the suppliers that we've worked with have ever done it, and while we have engaged in the conversation with them, they were adamant that they needed to retain the right to do so, and it ended up being a deal breaker for the ability to actually do the program, is that we couldn't take away the right for them to offer a market piece. They were not willing to engage in a contract that didn't at least protect the right. But I hear what you're saying about, can we be more specific about limiting it, just like explicitly saying not for residential customers?
Right.
And that's the piece that I will happily follow up with them on.
I would appreciate that. And then one other thing, at least you're going to get this all out of the way before the 27th, and I would not have brought this up had you not brought up about Disney.
Oh, I apologize for my analogy in advance.
And so that brought up for me Reedy Creek. And I'm not sure if you're aware of what's going on at Disney. My husband worked for Disney, and I lived in Florida for many years. In fact,
Barely. I know some media coverage of Reedy Creek and the dissolution of the.
Right, so basically Ron DeSantis is now in charge of the electricity and all of the grid at Disney World. And so that makes me think, and I don't know how energy works, but to me, when I see like this Florida corporation that's going to be in charge of our electricity, and I know the situation with the grid in Florida with the hurricanes. I just sold a house in Florida in May, so I know what that's all about. And so I just imagine all of our energy going into a big pot, and then when the energy is mismanaged, or you know, if we have a situation like they've had in Texas with the power grid, like how do we in Rhode Island, and is that the way it works, or am I just being a worrier?
I mean, I appreciate the worry, because I think like when we do this, we should think of it from every single angle, and I appreciate you bring it here, and I am happy to have the conversation again on the 27th. I'm totally okay with it and happy to do so.
Okay.
I can speak, the Texas thing I can speak to specifically, and then I'll address it more generally, because this is obviously, what we call the Texas was like a death spiral for both the users and the grid in itself. And I would say that the reason that happened, I'm going to take one step back. There's 6 different regional energy grids in the United States. We're in the ISO New England, the independent system operator of New England. They're the ones who, from Congress's direction, is responsible for the management of our electricity grid for all of New England. Texas, being who they are, said, we're going to have our very own grid, and we're going to run it by our rules. Not necessarily what anybody else wants. So like in New England, it's got to be governed by Congress and interstate agreements because it's multiple states. Texas said, we're going to have our grid, and it's just going to be our boundaries so the state can regulate it. When I talked before about how we procure electricity, is like how Rhode Island Energy does it, and we've modeled after it, is taking a longer duration, buying in advance, and then when you get to that moment, you reconcile. Like, we bought this much in advance, we need this much right now, and now we're figuring out where do we get, let's get the difference.
Like, would our energy go to Florida if they needed it?
No, it can't get there.
Okay, good.
It can't get there.
All right.
And so what happened in Texas, Texas doesn't do that. They have no protections by buying things in advance. All they have is, what it costs right now is what you pay.
I mean, that's
We don't do that for a reason.
right.
It's frightening to think about that. And so we built the system designed so that those significant price spikes that might happen in a moment are not borne individually by us as ratepayers. The suppliers, who are the ones that are actually sophisticated market participants, they're the ones that bear the risk for not modeling it correctly and having to buy extra in that spot market. If that price goes to $1,000 for a kilowatt hour, which is, just so you know, absurd. That's an absurd level. But if it went there like it did in Texas, and NextEra has to buy that electricity in that moment, the risk is on them to do so, to meet that extra demand, because they signed a contract with us saying, this is what we're going to charge you, and our responsibility is to understand the demand. So we both created a grid regionally to protect ratepayers from price spikes, and then we have a supplier under contract that both understands that and has accepted a responsibility that if they model this incorrectly, they have to buy extra. If it goes through the roof there, this is on them to figure it out. And luckily, the ability of our lights to turn on and off is independent of their ability to figure it out. Because that happens on the billing side. The operations side is ISO New England says, you, generator, turn on. I'm paying you. Turn on, deliver the electricity. We'll work out the billing later. And that's why we've separated operationally so that blackouts don't happen because of billing disputes. That we have independent markets to have that happen. So ISO New England is going to deliver the electricity, and then it's up for NextEra to figure out, okay, what did we buy at? How much did we miss? What's the profit and loss on that? And then they honor this rate for the duration. So.
Right, well, I have a lot to think about before I see you again
Absolutely.
on the 27th.
No, I look forward to it, and I believe Mark knows how to get a hold of me. I'm happy to talk in between, too.
Okay.
I talk about this all the time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Randy Watts from Kingston. Are there provisions that require some fraction of the energy to be either come from Rhode Island or from New England? And if so, how is that determined?
So there are not, sorry, I started answering the question and then I jumped in my head to a different one. So let me come right back. So the electricity we buy does not have to be generated in Rhode Island. It has to be delivered on to the New England grid, which means generated in New England or delivered at some of the key points, which is the northern, our connection to Canada or our connection to New York. You can deliver electricity that way. The one thing that we do have is for our renewable energy certificates, we have an agreement with, as I said before, Green Energy Consumers Alliance to source as much of the voluntary RECs, not the mandatory ones, the voluntary RECs from specific projects in Rhode Island. So we've got a couple capped landfills that have solar panels on it, wind turbines that Green Energy Consumers Alliance is purchasing the RECs from. And that's what they do. They're a REC broker as well as a nonprofit organization. So they buy the RECs from the renewables and they sell them to the program so that we're able to track our renewable certificates to as many Rhode Island projects as we can. And hopefully the more the programs grow, the more demand there will be for Rhode Island renewables, and that will help kind of spur more development of Rhode Island renewables. That being said, as I say all that, it's hypothetical.
Let's see if I followed that. So Green Energy Consumers Alliance can sell you as many RECs as they are able to produce? Is that sort of what you said?
Actually, we have a contract with them that limits the RECs that we're purchasing from them as I would call it. We're still figuring out the whole load model, and also they can only buy so many RECs that are available to them, and we did not want to lock ourselves into only buying for them in case they didn't have enough, so that we have other options available.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hi, a question and a comment. The example that you gave earlier to Patty about if they underestimate and it's on them to purchase it, but then the next time they reconcile the rates for the next 6 months, wouldn't that be part of the consideration?
Yes, that is part of the consideration.
All right, I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that.
Yeah, I wanted to be clear, and if I wasn't, that's when they set the next rate period, they look back at how did we do this one, what do we need to change, but also knowing that if they don't get lower than Rhode Island Energy, they're going to lose customers. So there's always a piece of like our goal, but then you're absolutely right that additional cost gets folded in because we know their profit.
Right, they're going to have to make it up somewhere. And then the second thing is a comment. The town, and Mr. Russo, you might be able to speak to this a little better. The town has a notify me system. You have to provide your email, but all of the town committees, like I get notices of town council meetings, and when there's, the fields aren't open because of rain. So the town already owns an email thing. People would have to opt in with their emails, but perhaps you could have a separate page for this program and have people sign on to it.
So there will be a link to the electricity.southkingstownri.com on the town's website. I will have to check with the administration on how we can send out alerts for the price increase, or I shouldn't say price increases, that's not the right word.
Rate changes.
Changes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I did not know of that system, so I really appreciate it. It's something we can look into. I knew we would finish our conversation from before, and I appreciate you waiting an hour and a half to do it.
That's good, good. Joe Sullivan, Wakefield. I do have a question. You bid for the electricity. Are you bidding for, 7 communities in Rhode Island? You bid all that? I mean, you bid that as one group or one lot?
Yes.
So you're not doing it individually by town or?
Not unless we could. If there were a reason to do so, there's nothing that prevents us from doing that. The goal was to maintain, what I didn't want to have happen is that Providence gets one rate in May, South Kingstown has another, Narragansett has another, especially at this program launch time. So we did them all together so that we'd all be launching at the same rate.
Actually, that sounds better because doing them one at a time starts sounding like the previous ones that were referred to as a scam, so.
Yes, but if there suddenly was a reason that goes, South Kingstown going by itself, they might be able to save a whole lot more for, I don't know why, but there could be a reason that says one municipality could save a lot more. We would definitely consider procuring just for one, like having NextEra procure for one community on its own. But so far, there's nothing that says anybody's going to save money that way.
Right, okay, so you're doing it all 7 at the same,
All 7 together.
thanks.
So you can go to all 7 communities, and you can see me do a repeat performance over the next 4 weeks. Like, look, I'm on, I'm ready.
Thanks.
How you doing? I'm Harold Thomas. I'm from South Kingston. Just have a billing question. In the past, when you went to these providers, they would send you a separate bill. I understand you're saying it's going to come through Rhode Island Energy. But are they going to charge fees or surcharges now that they're no longer the supplier of the electricity?
No. So they're not allowed to. And then, sorry, I don't want to, I'm going to go a little bit in the weeds, but pull me out if you need to. What was negotiated is a program called Purchase of Receivables. And what it allows the utility to do is to buy the accounts receivable from any competitive supplier, less a discount, which means that, so if NextEra, for example, I'm just going to use numbers, say NextEra has sold $1,000 worth of electricity and needs to bill that out. They can sell that to Rhode Island Energy for, once again, I'm making up the percentage, for $980.
So that's their fee basically to...
That's Rhode Island Energy's to the in case people don't pay fee, discount.
All right. So basically, when you get a bill, you're not going to get any extra transportation fees or anything for National Grid to handle, or Rhode Island Energy to handle that?
Nope, that's all there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So just to clarify, will there be still the renewable energy projects, the credits you can get?
Yes.
Line fees, all of that's still going to be the same?
Yeah, and if anybody has their bill in front of them, I'm going to do this from memory, so apologize if I get any of it wrong. In the delivery services portion at the top, usually of page 2, it lines out all of the different charges that are associated with the delivery of electricity. There's a renewable energy charge, or a transmission charge, and all of that is the charges to Rhode Island Energy to provide delivery services, and that's all the pieces that are built in. And then there's just the supply services, which account for the kilowatts that you actually used. And then for the other pieces, the other 3 main billing programs that are there's the low and moderate income discount that people receive either 25% or 30% full bill discount, still applies. So that is applied for anybody participating in the program. There's also an arrearage management plan for low income customers that get behind on their bills. That program is still available, even if you change your supplier. And the last one is budget billing. Budget billing continues to be available for customers, though it will only apply to the delivery portion of your bill, not the supply portion. For now, we think Rhode Island Energy is doing that incorrectly. Thank you. And we've started I'll call it a conversation to begin with before it's any more official than that they need to change the billing services to get budget billing to apply to the whole bill, which is what they originally said. But anyway, I won't get into negotiating with the utility. I don't think anybody wants to get there.
Hey, just one quick last question. John Churris from Wakefield. One of the inserts that I used to like to look at in the bill from Rhode Island Energy is the source of energy supply, where it's coming from, coal, hydro, photovoltaic. Will that information be available for the program, and where would you find that?
We're going to be publishing it on the website to begin with, rather than doing I think Rhode Island Energy has moved away from the bill inserts. Maybe they haven't, but, and if folks will indulge me for a moment, that one of the things that we found as we were developing this program and we were at the Public Utilities Commission is they asked us a question of what is the energy source disclosure label that we're going to use? And so we pulled one that we've used in Massachusetts, and they go, this isn't very good, right? It meets all of our requirements, but it's not very good. I go, well, what would make it good? That seems like a challenge accepted. And we actually endeavored on about a 3 to 4 month engagement process with the Public Utilities Commission to redesign the entire energy source disclosure label to be more clear about what did the suppliers promise, what did they deliver, and then being able to clearly articulate the sources with more granular breakdown, including the air pollution and carbon emissions that are associated with it. And so these programs are going to be the first time that those disclosure labels are used in Rhode Island. And I am crossing my fingers that if successful, I think because of this, we're going to change all of the disclosure labels that everybody uses because we needed a better one that could be legible. Comprehensive. It was legible. We could read the words. Nobody knew what they meant, though. Somebody who reads them every time, you start to understand. But I'm hoping that when you see the new one, you go, oh, this is a market improvement. And if it's not, please call me and yell at me that we didn't do a good enough job.
And one other thing, once you opt in and you're billed, you're going to see what you're paying for electricity every month for the program that you're in. Will the information for Rhode Island Energy be available somewhere? If you wanted to say, hey, I wonder what the Rhode Island Energy is, or what's the program 100 versus the 50? Will that information still be out there that consumers could?
We're going to keep that live on the website at all times. So anytime Rhode Island Energy numbers update, we'll update the site. Anytime our rates change for any of the products, we'll do it there first. And then when we do the media announcements and now maybe text messaging, maybe some email collect. So all the different ways we would want to include both Rhode Island Energy and then our prices so that every consumer can adequately compare them. Thanks.
So Jamie, ever since we received the postcards in the mail, my phone's been ringing off the hook.
Yours too?
Yes. Yeah. So most of the questions were, is this a scam? Is this real? And I reassured the folks that it is real. But one of the questions they had was is it the LHEAP? Well,
LIHEAP.
LIHEAP, yeah. If you could answer that question for someone, because they were not able to make it tonight. So.
Oh, yeah. So anybody who benefits from the LIHEAP program, those individuals are the ones that qualify for a full bill discount. That discount, once again, is maintained for them without them having to do anything whatsoever. I don't know the type of LIHEAP benefits they were getting, but this will not change whether their eligibility for them or how they receive them. Because I know they can come in forms of monetary support, delivered fuels. It all depends to them. But if based off of participation in LIHEAP, they have a bill discount, that'll be maintained.
Okay. Another question was, someone gets all of their energy from a community solar program, and were they supposed to opt in or opt out?
My understanding is that...
in order to maintain getting their power from the community solar.
So my understanding is that if they're participating in community solar, they are not an eligible customer, and they should not receive a letter. If for some reason they do, we can rectify that, but we asked just so everybody knows, the information that we got for these came from National Grid or Rhode Island Energy. So we didn't look at tax rolls, we didn't do anything independent. We got approval from the PUC to request customer information from Rhode Island Energy in order to facilitate the program. So if they have it marked that somebody's a community solar participant and thus not eligible, we're just taking the data from them. If we have it wrong and you let us know, we will take it up with Rhode Island Energy. I just want to be clear, we didn't create it. We're relying on somebody else's database, and every database is made by humans has some errors in it. It's not going to be perfect, but if any individual says, I got this letter, I don't think I should have, let us know as soon as possible so we make sure that they're not improperly opted into the program, and we can update Rhode Island Energy's records. So, did I wait everybody out? No more questions? Oh, yes.
Out of the weeds. I'm a real big picture person.
Okay, I will stay out of the weeds.
Well, you might go into it a little bit. So I pulled our bill up.
Yeah.
We have a different supplier, Smart Energy. I didn't even know who it was, to tell you the truth. So just pretend I've been on another planet for 6 months. I got a postcard last August, September, that we were going to be able to participate in this community aggregate solar farm being built up in Johnston. I thought that's what this was.
This is different.
This is not.
This is
something else. So first question is, do you have any idea, or someone must, of the people in South Kingstown, in our zip code Kingston, how many are not eligible? In other words, I would not have gotten a letter because my supplier is somebody in New York City for whatever reason. What's that percentage? So how many people are not even being offered this opportunity? And maybe you only know it for the all seven.
It's I can find, I should be able to find out, but what we get from Rhode Island Energy is the list of eligible customers. So we shouldn't have any information on non-eligible customers. So in order to create that number, I'd have to look at
What's that number compared to the total?
what's the total number, which is not something we have readily on hand.
Okay.
That would be something we'd have to ask Rhode Island Energy for. They have it. I think they would tell us. But I would have to actually request the...
They really don't influence who the supplier is. We get stuff independently.
Yeah, exactly.
So now I need to go find out about this other community aggregate.
Yes. I don't know.
Well, as you're a sales manager for your own company, you probably wouldn't want to tell me anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
it would be a smart choice.
I'm a
for us
consultant to the town, so if Mark told me to answer the question, I would absolutely answer the question. Actually, he wouldn't even tell me. I'm happy to help you if I can.
But, I mean, if I'm going to make an informed decision, I want to know about this other program that's out there, I presume it's still out there, and, you know, what you're offering, and then I need to call up my New York City contact here and say, is there a fee for me to leave?
Yes.
I'm paying 25 cents of whatever the unit is, which seem ridiculous.
But hopefully that includes both supply and demand. But I mean, I'm on Rhode Island Energy myself right now because the programs haven't launched. I'm paying 17.8 cents too. So 25 is a lot higher, but we're getting up to the point with these winter rates that they were just high.
I mean, as long as we've lived here, I've thought electricity here was very expensive. So anyway, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. And if anybody doesn't want to talk publicly, I'll be here afterwards. If you don't want to be if you don't want to be on YouTube, I understand. So, all right. Well, thank you all. I really truly appreciate the questions, the concerns, the comments. We'll take some of this back and see what we can do.
Thank you for coming.
Good to see you, Mark. We'll catch up sometime, all right? All right.